Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing? Welcome back to Philosapiens, where religion meets reason. And we're back again with another English stream. Sorry to our apologies to our Hindi Urdu speaking crowd because we haven't done a Hindi Urdu stream in a long time. I didn't get much time, and so did Callie as well. But we plan to do it over this weekend. With me, as always, for English stream is Mahdin. Mahdin, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm not bad. I'm probably a little bit better than you.
Oh, you okay? Yeah. I think this change of season and this allergy problems and flu problems and all those rise up pretty much around this time. So, anyways, without any further ado, I think what we did in our last stream was we were reviewing a couple of shorts, and most of these shorts were of Muhammad Ali. And what we are doing tonight as well is we're gonna stick to the same ones that we weren't able to kind of cover the other day. So I'm gonna add those here. And before that, I'll say to our audience, requested to just like, subscribe, and share. As of now, we have a huge audience, by the way. So yeah. Anyways, whenever someone gets to it, it's a humble request for them to like, subscribe, and share. And also, as you know, we have an English-only channel. Subscribe to that as well. And if you can, please support us any which way you can. All right. Without any further ado, we're gonna add this. And tonight, what we're gonna do is we're gonna shut the stream down at a precise 45-minute hour mark, right? So at least that's my hope. Right. Martin, you want to add anything?
No. Let's just start because we've got limited time.
All right.
Why did you restrict evidences to only empiricism, the five senses? Because why did you
perceive the world, isn't it?
That's incorrect. No, we have a lot of other ways of reaching conclusions, which is not empirical. Where do you have to go?
Sudan.
How do you know Sudan exists? There is no empiricism. Where are you going to go if there is no Sudan? I'm asking a question.
I guess there's such a massive consensus evidence that Sudan does exist.
So testimony, when there is a large number of testimony, that's a valid source of information. When you take the bus, do you have empirical evidence that the bus driver is a qualified bus driver? This is a life and death matter. It could crash you. Do you have empirical evidence that he's a qualified bus driver?
I guess not completely.
When it comes to God, you don't apply consistency. When it comes to testimony, that's the point I'm trying to make. Testimony is a valid source of knowledge. It's not only empirical senses. Reasoning, deduction, mathematics, all of these things we use as valid sources of knowledge other than the empirical senses. Why did you restrict evidence?
All right. So right off the bat, I mean, in some sense, Muhammad Ali is right. So let me say where he's right. Empiricism is not the only way to gain knowledge, basically, and that's true. You can do that by thinking within yourself, pretty much with the logical ways, basically, right? So that's where he's perfectly fine. But as soon as he brings in the example of Sudan and all those, and compares those examples, basically he gave two examples as far as we can see over here. One was where you going? He asked the question, where you going? He said Sudan, and said, how do you know Sudan exists or not? So there is an overwhelming, evidence for countries existing, basically, right? So that's the base, basically. And the claim is not that big because countries exist. That person probably has known someone very close by, not just one person, but many people who have gone to some other countries, not Sudan. And probably he has also known that somebody has already gone to Sudan, right? So those two claims, that when you bring those questions about epistemology in terms of God's existence, those two claims are very different. Somebody claiming that whether Sudan exists or not is a very different claim than somebody claiming God exists or not. And same is true with the bus example that he gave. We know that buses are out there, and we have known that by and large traveling via bus is safe. and a particular driver, most of those drivers, doesn't matter which particular driver you're talking about, is a safe driver or not, is based on those statistics as well. So I think I'm not quite sure why he's comparing those two things with God's existence. God's existence is a very, very different claim compared to those two claims, basically. So yeah, Mahdin, take
Yeah.
over.
Yeah, no, I generally agree with you. So I think some of the things that he's doing here is a misunderstanding or a lack of general knowledge about philosophy and philosophy of epistemology, philosophy of science, etc., and mischaracterizing what empiricism is. Right? He seems to be conflating the word empiricism with direct observation, and that's not exactly how it's ever been used. Right? Direct observation would mean the only thing that is empirically available to you is at any one given time will be what is directly, in terms of your sensory inputs and outputs, available to you at any one point of time. So if you're sitting on the bus, what you can sense through touch, hearing, your direct eyesight, those are the only things that exist empirically. That is not what we mean exactly by empiricism. Empiricism actually is, if you look through the philosophical literature, it breaks down to two fundamental components, right? It's direct evidence and it's indirect evidence as well. It is the reason why the fundamental sciences are considered empirical in nature. So when scientists say empirical evidence, for example, they're not saying they directly observed, for example, stars. They still think there is empirical evidence of stars or star formation. They still think, although that we don't have direct evidence of the Earth going around the sun, we still think that we have empirical evidence of the Earth going around the sun. But why? Is it because we've got video recorded evidence? Of course not. It's because this is an equivocation or a misunderstanding, right? Empiricism has always covered those two components: direct observation and indirect observation, right? Even David Hume, for example, when he talked about empiricism, learning about the world through the senses, he talked about testimony being one of the greatest routes of learning about the world through the senses, right? So testimonial evidence, according to David Hume, a great Enlightenment philosopher, was empirical in nature. Reason being, these are things that we learn from our observations or indirect observations, and they become probabilistic as a result. So that's one thing that there's a mistake about, and I'm not sure why the questioner here, I don't know his background, but he didn't pick up on it. Maybe he himself has a misunderstanding of what empiricism is, right? So empiricism isn't just restricted to what you can touch, feel, see in any given particular time. And we also understand this from, for example, through inductive arguments or any sort of argument, like all men are mortal, Socrates is a man, and therefore Socrates is mortal. It's a deductive argument. All men are mortal. Well, that's considered an inductive premise. But did we go and observe every single man being mortal? Does any one person has observed every single man being mortal? No. But it's considered an inductive premise. How is it considered an inductive premise if it's not, learned through observation? Well, it's learned through indirect observation, and that's considered part of the empirical method as well. And this is why when we come across Socrates and we know Socrates is a man, we can think it's a high likelihood that he's also mortal, right? Because all men are mortal, Socrates is a man, so therefore Socrates is mortal. Those tend to be empirical in nature because there's significant empirical input for those premises, supporting those premises. So there's a misunderstanding here that he doesn't seem to understand. Do you want to comment on that, by the way, Philo, before I...
No, go ahead.
Yeah, and therefore this kind of everything that I've said therefore kind of it clarifies everything about geography and countries and continents, etc. Therefore, stuff like how do I know China exists? How do I know Sudan exists? All the circumstantial, indirect evidence allows me to make that inference from those experiences of that sort. From the fact that continents, land masses exist, the fact that the United Nations exist, the fact that people from these backgrounds and cultures exist, artifacts, and other paraphernalia that's associated with Sudan or whatever continent that you're talking about, all together creates this grand slam circumstantial case, which is part direct, part indirect, that is significantly empirical in nature. And
All right,
that's what we mean by.
Mahdin, are you finished with your thought, or
Yeah,
you
go
want
for
to
it.
finish? All right, so I'm just gonna ask a question here. I think because these guys deal with absolutes, can you be absolutely sure that Sudan exists, or can you with all these circumstantial evidences, basically all the
Yeah,
paraphernalia evidences that you may have? I think, and this is my take. I don't know what your take is. My take is you cannot go to that absolute truth value, basically
well,
100%
yeah, of
absolute
course.
sure. I would say you can get your credence level to a very, very high level, maybe 99.9999% or something like that,
Yes,
due to all those things. But I would be skeptical of saying that I'm absolutely sure that Sudan
absolutely,
exists,
yeah.
right?
And that would still apply if you were in Sudan as well, right?
Right,
Because
exactly.
the only thing that creates that uncertainty, that non-zero probability of failure of a false positive, the only thing that creates that is the mere possibility of it being all false. And
Exactly.
therefore, yeah, so the mere possibility, we have to ask that question in every instance, and we can ask it even if we were landed in Sudan's most famous airport and walked out to the airport and explored the terrain and met Sudanese people, saw the embassies, we saw the legal institutions, we saw the tourist sites. We, for all reason, we think that, for example, we have all the great reasons to think that we're in Sudan, and it can still be false because there's a highly, probably just so negligible that it's not worth thinking about because it's just so stupendously unrealistic possibility that you've been hoodwinked, right? You have been hoodwinked because it's possible.
Exactly.
Who's going to do
Exactly.
that? I don't know, but you can do that, right? First of all, somebody can just play a stunt on you. Somebody can prank you, and it's really unlikely to make such an elaborate prank, but it's very
It, it
possible.
it it could just be a mass hallucination, just
Exactly,
a mass
exactly.
hallucination,
Yeah.
basically.
So in that sense, there's a non-zero probability of everything, including the fact that I am sitting in my computer room and talking to you on a phone, right? There's a non-zero probability that I might actually be dreaming, and this was just a dream. But it's just, it's just not worth thinking about.
Exactly.
So yeah, in that sense, obviously, an absolute certainty is not possible.
Oh, right, right, right. And yeah, I think you summed it up well. Anything you want to add on to this, or shall we move on to our next one? Do you think we should open the stream for callers? If we do, maybe we'll take only one, or maybe at max two callers, right?
Yeah, I
Or
mean, if there's some people willing to come on, I know there's Wesley Curry there, but Wesley, I think you misunderstood our stream. So unfortunately, we won't be inviting you because it doesn't seem like you understand what we're doing. And we've had you in the past. We had a cordial conversation, but I'm not sure that it'll be productive in the future. But if there's anybody else who wants to come on, Philo, do you
yeah,
want
yeah.
to?
I think yeah. Mahdin said it right. Wesley, I apologize, but we won't be taking you on because I don't think you understand, as Mahdin said, as to what we are doing. I think you have different. Yeah, I think Bilal has something to say. Bilal is asking us, why don't you guys upload? Hold on. Why don't you guys upload videos on your English channel? Yeah, I think we have been lazy, Bilal. And we are looking for, if you know someone who's willing to help us, it can be you as well, who's willing to, volunteer and do that kind of, support us that way to make, maybe help us with thumbnails or upload videos or that kind of stuff. You or someone you may know who might be able to do that help to us, will be glad to accept that help, basically. But otherwise, we are all stuck with our work, and maybe at times we get lazy, probably both. So yeah, anyways, what I'm going to do, Madan, is I'm gonna make the link public, and let's see if anybody joins, right? And as we have said, we are not gonna add Wesley Curry because I think it's not gonna be a helpful it's not gonna be a helpful conversation. So what I'm gonna do is make the link public. All right, and I'm gonna pin it as well.
Yeah. Bilal, if you want to come on, we've not heard your voice. We've heard of her, you've been a long-standing member and contributor to our streams, and you've obviously followed us, in religiously, in fact. So it'll be actually good to hear you comment on anything in person. I think it'll be a pretty good conversation to have. So if you want to come on, we invite you.
Yeah, I think Bilal, if you want to, and if you can, then please do join. And if you cannot, then that's perfectly fine as well. We understand. All right. So, Mahdin, what we're going to do is we're going to now jump on to the next one. All right.
And whilst you just do so, let me just quickly clarify as well. I think a lot of people, when they kind of focus on this empiricism versus other forms of the reason why a lot of people bring up, we need more empirical evidence is because it's very, very hard to construct through pure logic or pure analytical arguments conclusions that are reliable. And henceforth, when atheists and atheistic philosophers emphasize we need a bit more empirical evidence, and those of the empirical variety who cling on to empiricism, they recognize the reliability of empiricism, the efficacy of empiricism versus other methods. So whilst you can construct very elaborate, like logical arguments, their efficacies tend to be quite limited and doubtful, particularly when you want to figure out what's happening in the world. Right? You can come up with very elaborate logical kind of schemes, like all dinosaurs are pink. If X is a dinosaur, then that dinosaur is going to be pink. It's just a philosophical word game. It's logically valid, but it might not be sound until we have some sort of empirical import to sustain the first premise, let's say, which is all dinosaurs are pink, which requires observations of the world. So as many of you may have heard me talk about in the past, or any philosophically astute people, the distinction between analytical truths and synthetic truths. And I'm not a person who discards analytical truths, because I hold many analytical truths, and I even think morality might be an analytical truth. I think mathematics are analytical truths. However, its domain is strictly limited. When we start talking about what's actually in the world, we do need to start looking at the world, either directly or indirectly. Right? And there's plenty of things that we call empirical that we learn through indirect methods. Most people would think, for example, DNA evidence in a crime scene is empirical evidence of the culprit being found. But if you think about it, it isn't. Yeah, it's true. It's an empirical. It is an empirical way of figuring that out. But if you think about it, the DNA still isn't direct evidence of the crime, but it's still considered to be a real strong indication there was a crime. And for us to draw real strong inferences, because the probability of the culprit's DNA not being there, let's say it's like
being there is very low. It's very low.
Yeah, exactly.
The probability is very low.
Yeah, what I would say is that the DNA being false is very low. If there's a 1 in 1 million chance of somebody else possessing your same DNA, that kind of closes the door for doubt that person was definitely there in that room or something like that. Now, did we see the person go into the room and carry out the murder? No, we didn't. Right? But
same is true with fingerprints as well, pretty much.
Yes. And if you look through any sort of Google literature, that's how the word empiricism gets used. Now, are they all wrong? So maybe this is a semantical problem where people just misunderstood what empiricism is, because we don't always rely on direct evidence. We make indirect inference. We look at indirect evidence and make inferences. And those inferences are known to be strong due to previous knowledge, inductive knowledge about that method, like DNA, right? Giving us a strong kind of base to make sort of strong conclusions, like statements and conclusions like Charlie was therefore in that room, and it's highly likely he was in that room, etc. And it probably was him who carried out that murder, and that would be considered empirical. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next clip. Not quite sure if I think I should highlight this basically. So anybody who's willing to have a cordial conversation about maybe any topic, as I've always said, you could be a Muslim, a Christian, or a Jew, or a Hindu, or whatever other ideology you may espouse. You can come here and have a conversation, cordial conversation, not a heated debate, and maybe we can exchange a few ideas and arguments basically. And you can come and have a chat, even if you are atheist, basically on our side of the fence, and we can still disagree with each other on some of the arguments, and you can still come and tell us whether we have presented some or the other argument falsely or mistaken about some argument or so. So, all right, let's add this new one here, and let's listen to this one.
Who created Allah?
Let's say Allah is created by another entity, hypothetically. That entity, where did it come from? What is the explanation?
I don't know. You tell me.
If you say by default that there is something else external to Allah that gave rise to Allah, that's an explanation for Allah's existence. If that something is an explanation, it's either that thing will have an explanation or will be something that doesn't require an explanation. If it kept being something that requires explanation, nothing will ever exist. By necessity, we'll have to reach a point where we have something which doesn't have an explanation. And that's what we call Allah.
Why can't just the innate fabric of the universe not require an explanation?
Because the innate fabric of the universe is arranged in a certain way and it has restrictions outside, therefore it requires an explanation outside itself. I'll be honest with you. The answers are there. You don't want to accept it, that's your position. But the rational basis is there. There is no logical reason to reject it.
Who created Allah?
Let's say
Okay, I just want to clarify before Mahdin, I'll give it to you. I just want to clarify one thing. I think in at least philosophy, there is a distinction that is made between explanation for a thing and a cause for a thing. So I think maybe Muhammad Ali here is mistaking the two. Basically, he hasn't made the distinction. Since we are picking this conversation from middle and just through a short, I'm not quite sure what the question from the atheist guy was, basically, if he is an atheist, right? So you can have a certain thing without any explanation, and you can always find examples about why I think I picked this example from Majesty of Reason, Joe's stream. Basically, he gives this example of the 7 bridges of something. What is that, Mahdin? You know that better. The 7 bridges problem. You cannot just cross the bridge only once. You have to cross one bridge twice to cover all the 7 bridges, basically, through one river, basically, right? So that problem, when you're stuck, there is no explanation for it. Basically, that's the design of it. That's how that problem exists. There's no explanation for it, basically, right? Why you can't cross, right? But that problem still exists, basically. That's how it is designed. Yes, causality has a different thing, basically. When you talk about causal finitude or causal infinitude, then you have a problem. You can raise a question, basically, where does that causal chain end, and if it really is a problem or not. So I think that distinction has to be really made here. Mahdin.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure exactly what sort of argument that he's talking about. It sounds like a contingency type of argument or something. Maybe need for a explanation that doesn't have any further explanations, a necessary existence, necessary cause, something like that. And I think the atheist raises the idea that why can't it be the universe? And I'm not sure what exactly. Do you want to just review that part again? What he says in response, what Muhammad Ali says in response. Yeah, you said it
Allah
very
is
fast.
created by another entity, hypothetically. That entity, where did it come from? What is the explanation?
I don't know. You tell me.
If you say by default that there is something else external to Allah that gave rise to Allah, that's an explanation for Allah's existence. If that something is an explanation, it's either that thing will have an explanation or will be something that doesn't require an explanation. If it kept being something that requires explanation, nothing will ever exist. By necessity, we'll have to reach a point where we have something which doesn't have an explanation. And that's what we call Allah.
Why can't just the innate fabric of the universe not require an explanation?
Because the innate fabric of the universe is arranged in a certain way and it has restrictions outside, therefore it requires an explanation outside of self. I'll be honest with you. The answers are there. You don't want to accept it, that's your position. But the rational basis is there.
Yeah, he says it really fast, but it's not really. It's arranged in a certain way. So what?
Yeah, he just used a gobbledygook basically. I'm not quite sure. He gave a gibberish response basically. It didn't make any logical sense, to be honest.
Yeah, because it doesn't have any restrictions outside. Well, God doesn't have any. Does a God have any restrictions outside? No, I mean, it's arranged in a particular way. What does that even mean? I mean, God is arranged in a particular way, right?
Particular way.
It's not like he's got particular characteristics.
I mean, any kind of arguments you can give for a God, you can put the same for that fabric of the universe, whatever it may be. It could be a manifold that you have never really thought about. It's beyond your imagination, pretty much. That fundamental fabric of the universe, or I mean, to call it even universe puts it into a different category. Just say that fundamental unit of the existence, basically, right? Not of humans, of the primordial whatever there was before this universe, basically, right? So that kind of a thing, and it could exactly be the same without the consciousness. Just remove the consciousness of the conscious God that you're thinking, and it could have exactly the same thing. And just the causal power that you think the God has, it has a causal power, basically.
Yeah, I mean,
without
sure,
it being
exactly.
conscious.
Yeah, so sure, he needs to explain and justify, for example, why something being in a particular specific or particular arrangement. And by arrangement, I don't just assume, for example, we mean material arrangement or anything like that. By arrangement, all I mean is some sort of organization, than any other organization. That's it, right? And it has characteristics, and almost everything will fulfill that definition, right? Apart from maybe absolute nothing, right? Yeah. And even if you want to be the very, very kind of hard-nosed philosopher, you may be able to find a specificity in nothing as well, in the sense that it's nothing. So, but I won't go down that route. But what I would say is that he needs to justify the rule, that the principle that he just asserts, which is because something is particular or arranged in a particular way, therefore it can't be a necessary thing. There's no reason for us to expect that without further reasoning, and it doesn't deploy that further reasoning. Therefore, it's just an unjustified, unsubstantiated assertion, right, to the atheist interlocutor. And the second thing is that applying that to the God, obviously God is composed in a particular way. For example, instead of having finite power, he has unlimited power. For instance, instead of being evil, he's good, right? He could have been evil, but he's not. Instead, he's good. He's good, etc. So it's very particular in that sense. You can think of God being infinitely powerful, everlasting, omniscient, and evil. That'll be one particular way. And you can think about all of those characteristics and just change the evil to good. That'll be another particular way. So, so his own rule, which he hasn't justified, would completely eliminate and discard the possibility of a God being a necessary cause. Yeah.
All right, I'm having a chat with Reflective Journey and asking him to come on the stream. Basically, he's raising some objections, and I said, okay, let's have a conversation about that. Why don't you come on the stream and have a chat instead of letting me bleed my fingers, right?
Yeah. Whilst we wait upon that.
No, I want to raise another objection. I want to raise another objection, minor objection on what Muhammad Ali said, basically, right? So he said he tried to, and we probably did talk about this earlier in our response, basically, right? And the response was that he's talking about causal finitude, basically, right? And he's saying that explanations cannot run for infinity, basically, right? And he hasn't given any argument for
Yeah,
it, basically.
exactly. I was going to talk about that as well, but you talked about it. But go on.
Right. So I'm saying there's no rule, there's no contradiction in saying that any explanation requires a prior explanation. That's about it. And you can have explanation for everything going back to infinity. And this argument basically works more in favor of causal finitude or causal infinitude. And that's where I say usually that you don't have to have a causal finitude, because you just can't say, oh, okay, there's a Benedetti paradox, or there is like Hilbert's
Yeah.
paradox and all those
Yeah, yeah.
things.
I think
Don't.
that if there's
Yeah.
an infinite series of past explanations, the idea that the universe won't come into existence hasn't been successfully persuaded amongst philosophical journalists. Some philosophers think that's the case. Some philosophers
Yeah.
don't. And causal infinitude, an infinite series of causes or infinite series of explanations,
Explanations. Yeah.
regressing backwards, etc. The idea is that there should be demonstrated a logical contradiction, etc., something like that. Before we do go into that, I think it really depends on what you're talking about, because if it's a contingency argument, somebody can make the argument that even an infinite number of causal events going backwards is still contingent, right? Because the chain could have been different or something like that, right? So if it's a contingency argument, one of the premises of the contingency argument, the principles of sufficient reason, and is the explanation found? Sorry, did you say something, reflective journey?
No, I was just no,
Yeah,
I was just
reflective journey. Can you mute
testing
yourself
my
for a
mic.
bit? Yeah, just 2 minutes while we finish this. Right, just 1 minute.
Yeah, I mean, with the Kalam cosmological argument, this problem isn't an issue, because if you can demonstrate an infinite regress of events, and you can show that, for example, this is perfectly fine, it's either empirically sound or logically sound or metaphysically sound, then you've kind of refuted one of the major pillars of the Kalam cosmological set of arguments. And I say set of arguments because it's not found in the original Kalam cosmological argument, which is everything begins to exist as a cause, universe began to exist, universe as a cause. But then it proceeds to talk about infinities. And it's that part. And if you can't rule out an infinity, then you don't need a beginning. If you don't need a beginning, then it's harder to introduce a God. And people like William Lane Craig would say that would be a successful counter argument and defeat the Kalam cosmological argument if you can show an infinite regress events can exist. But with the contingency argument, it's a bit different, because then you can still say, is this infinite regress of events contingent, or is it necessary? And if it's not necessary, then having a bundle or a complex set of contingent explanations is still contingent, and therefore it needs an explanation, right? And
Right. Yeah, totally agree. I think this causal
yeah.
infinitude argument or infinitude argument only applies to KCA, basically Kalam, set of Kalam
Yes.
cosmological arguments, basically. Yeah, totally agree with you. All right, reflective journey. What do you have?
Yes, sorry about that. I was just fixing my mic. I wasn't able to hear you guys. So, yeah. No, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think I would side with Kant, because reason cannot decide between beginning and no beginning. It runs into an antinomy, right? So you can argue for a beginning, you can argue for no beginning as well. So sort of
Right.
an antinomy.
Yeah. So I think we are agnostic about that, basically. I think then we are on the same page, I think.
Yeah, but the point, I think there's just a distinction you guys need to make, that instead of universe, I think P uses the initial state of the universe, because if you say universe is contingent, right? Unless you are going the necessitarian route, that everything that happens is necessary, and the universe itself the current state of the universe also becomes necessary. Then but by universe he's saying that all the things that currently exist need an explanation. So I
Yeah.
think his reply was in that way. So
Yeah,
even
I
his
think,
interlocutor should have said that
yeah, I think the
initial state of
atheist,
the universe.
yeah, I think the atheist interlocutor was speaking very colloquially, and he probably isn't very informed himself. But he did mention, for example, if I remember correctly, he mentioned that why can't a part of the universe, right? And therefore, he's not specifying any part, but a part, and therefore that's compatible with the initial state. So he's not specifically mentioned the initial state, but his view is compatible with that because he's saying why cannot there be a part of the universe that is just like that is necessary. So he's not saying the universe is necessary in all of its parts. He's saying could there not be a part that is necessary, and that might be, for example, the initial state of the universe. That might be something beyond our current known cosmology, beyond, let's say, the singularity prior to the Big Bang. Let's say there might be some other states of a universe, maybe different universe
Right, and
that might be necessary. So I think his view is broadly compatible with what you're saying, the Oppie's view, etc.
Yeah.
all right.
But
I think
you
you
had
have joined
mentioned,
after a long time, by the way. How are you doing?
Doing good. It's late a bit. I was just browsing YouTube at 2 a.m. Doing good though.
Between are you I think if I remember correctly, you are an engineer, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. I won't go any further. I won't ask any further. All right. Any more objections you have, or points you want to add to whatever we have said?
Yeah, one point was that in in which context were you saying that we can just replace universe with God with universe and all explanations work? I mean, I think it doesn't apply to all arguments, but in some
No, I was
context,
saying in this case, basically, in this
oh,
case, you can replace the God that you are talking about, especially Muhammad Ali. He's talking about Islam, right? So you can replace God, except with few of God's attributes, and just add, you know, that whatever fundamental reality to be non-conscious causal entity, basically, right? That's what I meant. All it needs is
yeah.
a causal entity, just a robot that can tick and kind of uh,
I won't say
initiate.
robot. I won't say
So
robot.
Yeah, I mean, I won't say robot. Basically, yeah, maybe whatever I said earlier was right. A causal entity, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
got it.
All right.
So was he doing the contingency argument? But in
No, he's
contingency argument,
he's 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 talking about the explanations, basically, but he's talking about the explanations. But I'm thinking he's probably confusing it with the contingency, basically, right? Because you don't need to have explanation for the the explanant, basically, in the whatever the last explanant you have, right?
yeah. So it's something like principle of sufficient reason or something that everything contingent needs to have a reason. Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess.
but I mean, he's using. I think you'll have to at some point you'll have to give away that strong PSR, basically, right? And use some in even in his own case, when it comes to God, he has to give away that strong PSR, right?
Yeah, yeah. In even PSR folks say that necessary things don't need an explanation, right? Or do
Yeah, that's
I
the
mean,
that's the wiggle room they have, right? That's what we're talking about, right? And the same could be done to that causal entity.
yeah, you can
Yeah,
just
I
assert
think
as
reflective journey. The point is, the reason that we're proposing a causal entity is precisely because they're trying to, through logical and analytical thinking, weed it down to being the only logical option, that the necessary existent thing has to have the characteristics, right, of a god or a deity. And what we're trying to say is that from pure reason, we can't arrive at that. And hence, there's an open set of alternative kind of structures that might also fit that definition of it being necessary. There's no reason why it needs to be immaterial versus material. There's no reason why it needs to be conscious versus non-conscious. Because why should we think that? Is it by definition the case that conscious things are necessary? No, not by definition, not by analytical thinking. There's no definitional aspect to it, like, for example, 2 + 2 = 4, or all bachelors are married. It's not an analytical truth to say a conscious thing is necessary, right? And you can do that with every other attribute as well. So they have to explain, if they're going down the route of pure reason, why a God is necessary versus many of the other type of definitions that we might provide. So we're not actually saying that part of the universe or part of the unknown world, cosmos, that is a necessary thing. We're just saying, if you're going to play these kind of linguistic games, why should we be held hostage to this one proposal of a deity, right? We have no reason to think God is the only thing that is necessary. We're not concluding that there can be other things that are necessary. We're probably agnostic on that aspect. The only other thing that I would say is the fact that we do have a universe, the fact that we have explanations that fall under physicalism, where it's non-conscious processes that explain things. Usually, like every time we look through a telescope, when we open a science textbooks, it's usually non-conscious entities, non-conscious causal entities that explain things. I would say there's a higher likelihood to go in that direction, to think if there has to be a necessary thing, then it's more likely to be a non-conscious thing. That's maybe the only thing that would tilt me in favor of a non-conscious thing. But other than that, we're not even committed to the idea that there is a necessary thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree totally. Yeah.
Got it.
But
of course, from a single argument, if they're trying to claim that they're deriving all attributes of God just from a contingency argument, that wouldn't work. But yeah, at some point they'll just appeal to revelation, right? That reason has reached till here. After that, it's revelation. So, and don't like that move, but I think
Are you a deist, by the way?
No. I'm non-theist. I'm not an atheist or a theist. No. I mean, no. No, I mean, I don't buy into the omni conception, but I think some sort of pantheistic conception is right. I guess sort of a Platonist. So I'm an axiological realist that I think the good or the one, or I mean, I guess if we want to go to Vedanta route here, the Brahma, that sort of view is more coherent. That it's sort of an impersonal, without attributes, Nirgun Brahma. And did that?
Yeah,
Are you familiar with
I've had
Vedanta side?
Yeah, I've had a few conversations with a few Vedanta guys. I think you might know this guy who comes to our stream, C Time. I think so. You're in the same kind of camp, basically, as him. And
I'm still learning, because there are a lot of, even within Indian philosophy, there are a lot of like subgroups. Like there is Advait Vedanta, then there is Vish Vedanta. So I'm kind of
he was
exploring.
from Advait Vedanta, basically. That's what I remember. C Time, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with the gist of it, but yeah, learning more. But mostly I'm like a Platonist in orientation, so I think that like different all religious systems try to form representation of the absolute in different way. There is like no one perfect way to attribute like like some concept would have to be ultimate, but that ultimate concept you cannot talk about. So kind of a negative theological move, sort of. And I guess if you're familiar with Platonism, the basic argument there is that everything intelligibility, that intelligibility is being, that whatever is being is what is intelligible, then and what is the source of that intelligibility cannot itself be intelligible, because then that, so, and if that source is not intelligible, then yeah, you cannot like put it in discursive terms. But experientially, through like meditative practices and other like communal experiences, you can have sort of a ritual knowledge of that. So I'm not saying that it's completely beyond knowledge, but because that would be contradictory, that you're saying it's not intelligible and then you're saying it's not, then how do we even know it is real or exists? But yeah, I'm saying it's sort of a like a ineffable, or yeah, and it's a pretty common move, like in different traditions. I don't know in Islam it is so, but even in Christianity there is negative theological, uh, yeah, like some church fathers make that move. So they're
Okay.
saying that the, if like Orthodox Christianity has that essence energy distinction, and they'll say that essence is always unknown, and you can only know God through his energies or his effects. So yeah, I mean, I think that kind of makes sense, but yeah. But yeah, I'm not a reductive physicalist. In physicalism, I would take the non-reductive physicalist side. But yeah, some people say that non-reductive physicalism is not physicalism. So okay, then I'm
So,
not a
can
physicalist.
you tell me? Can you tell me why you think why you think non-reductive physicalism is better fit for the world as a descriptor?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see. I guess from philosophical arguments only, but so one issue would be of determinism and free will. So and reductive, like if we are going reductive, I don't see. Uh, I would say that the structures at the higher level can impact uh, the lower level. So there's sort of a downward causation. It's not like the atomic, the lowest level fixes everything.
1 minute. Do you believe in free will?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, so that's why you think physicalism entirely can't explain the existence of free will. It would mean free will doesn't exist, but you believe there's free will, and therefore you believe that therefore you don't think everything is physical. Is that right?
Um, no. So there is free will, but I mean I would say even the physics is not deterministic. Like quantum mechanics and all is not deterministic. So uh, yeah, there is agency, and I would say real agency. Free will, yeah. So in that case, determinism, free will question doesn't get started if determinism itself is false. And I would say like if you go the mechanical mechanism route, like reducing everything to
But
mechanism, then
you can be you can be a reductive physicalist while still believing that the universe is not fully deterministic.
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Right. So if you believe, let's say, there's indeterminism in the universe or something, you can still be a physicalist.
Yeah, I mean, I can still be a physicalist. So I'm saying I'm a non-reductive physicalist, but yeah, I don't. Uh, but the reductive physicalism is has lots of inconsistency for me. So I mean it. So how do we explain the agents who are deriving the physical laws itself? So there are scientists. There's a linguistic community of people who are working on deriving those uh, whatever the uh, uh, set of theories, but those people themselves cannot be explained under reductive physicalism. They are just yeah, epiphenomena in that. So it's like a blind spot. for
Oh,
that
so
view.
let me just clarify what you said. You're saying sorry, say that again. People can't. Are you saying people can't be explained through reductive physicalism?
Yeah, people with agency, because I mean,
Well,
I would say if you need agency to even make any claim, yeah, just to have something be happening for a reason or to give explanation, right? Otherwise, like, there's a distinction of reasons and causes. So if reason is ultimately reducible to cause, then
mm,
uh, then yeah, then your theories, then rationality itself, like, falls out of the picture. But due to the reasons of rationality, uh, you arrived at the theory of reductive physicalism
yeah.
based on reason, but reason itself,
Oh, I see. Okay, I see.
uh,
So let me just
so that
add something. I
undercuts
understand what
undercuts
yeah,
that.
I understand what you're
Yeah.
saying. But the thing is, reasoning is like if A then B and C or something, like some sort of reasonable kind of deduction or induction or whatever that you're doing. These sort of things that we call reason, or adding meaning to words, etc. You're thinking that that can't be explained through deterministic processes or physical causes. But what would you say to an example of, let's say, a computer or artificial intelligence, which we're in the frontiers of right now, that does propose reasons and give reasons for choices and decisions it makes? The whole point is that our brains are like pretty much like moist computers, right? Our brains are meant to be biological computers, very similar to the computer that you got or in your hand or in front of you, like if you have a mobile phone. And they go through reasoning, right? It processes things, it kind of
I
executes
mean,
commands. So that's all it would
I
be.
would
Yeah.
contend that, right? So um so yeah, reasoning would like be about deliberations and making uh choices from potential options, right? So
Yeah, and
you need
computers do that. Computers do that. I mean, your traffic
computers
lights.
are formalistic machines, right? So uh,
Yeah.
they always will give a determinate answer, and if you rerun them, they'll always give the same answer. But
No, it
and
depends. Well, you will always give the same answer as well, but for
yeah,
specific
that's
scenarios,
true. That's true.
right?
Yeah.
You will always give specific answers. Like if I asked you what your name is, you're going to always give. But if you have a computer program that gives variable answers, then you can do that. You can program a computer to do even with artificial intelligence. You can program it to give variable answers. Sometimes because it's responding to very sensitive and minute differences in the question. Other times you can just literally program it in such a way that when each person asks the same identical question, it'll give a different answer, right? And etc. But none of that shows that the computer isn't run through by operating on the underlying physical processes. It is operating with underlying physical processes.
No, I mean, I get you, but yeah, I would not agree that like computers are reasoning or the current AI is reasoning. I mean, in future, of course, it's possible that yeah, some sort of AI based on different different like configuration or different material itself, like people are experimenting with agential AI.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I
but
mean, we've already got that now with Chat GPT because two people's experiences with Chat GPT can be very different, even though they gave the same answer, very similar to human beings. For example, if I ask you, Reflective Journey, to give me your biography, you're going to give me specific facts, right? But then 2 days later, if another person asks you to give me to give them your biography, you'll also say those specific facts, but you may say it in a different arrangement. You may say it with a bit more enthusiasm. You might say with different grammar, different content. You might give a different analogy, right? But you'll still give the same theme of an answer. And ChatGPT does that. For example, if you go to ChatGPT and ask a question about something, it will give a general answer that if Philo
no,
goes and asks the same question, but the general answer, although it's the same, it will say it in a different arrangement, different words, different points, It happens. So you can have that variability.
So
All right, gents,
I think
reflective journey. Before you respond, Mahdin, I'm dropping out. Uh, do you
Do you
think
have
you
to?
want to carry on the conversation?
Do you have to drop
I
out?
think you're in the middle of it, right? So
I mean, it's up to you. I mean, if reflective journey wants to continue talking, yeah. But Philo, do you have to go? Is
sure.
it mandatory?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Oh,
So
okay, yeah.
reflective journey. Maybe what you can do is you can come in next time, and then we can carry on from where
Yeah, but
we left off.
if reflective
Sure.
journey wants to continue having a 5 or 10 minute conversation with me, that's okay as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
then
that's fine.
I'll drop out, right?
Yeah.
In the meanwhile.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. See
All
you
right.
later.
Yeah.
All right. Ciao.
Have a good one. Bye. Oh, yeah. So
Yeah.
continuing on. So
Yeah. Go on.
I think we need to get clear about some a few concepts here. So I wouldn't say that computers have agency or AI current AI has agency. So of course there can be pseudo randomness and that is everywhere in AI and you can simulate that. But I would say that like biological organisms cannot be reduced to or simply cannot be simply reduced to machines. So because in a way you're claiming that we are also machine and computer is also machine, but I would say that there's a difference between organisms and the machines that artifacts that we have developed. So I would agree that computers are in a way sort of extensions of us, but whatever intentionality or whatever like agency they have is sort of derived on our culture. So the language, even ChatGPT, the language was developed by humans, right? And even for programs, someone has to write that program, and that input has to be interpreted by an agent to have meaning. It doesn't have
Yeah, but
meaning itself for the computer
no,
itself. So
I
that is
think
the point.
I think we're getting confused with certain concepts because sure, it might be programmed by human beings, but it still shows that a machine can, through deterministic
So
processes, uh, give reasons and variable answers and respond to circumstances and adjust its attitude, etc., and so on and so forth. And nothing indeterministic is happening there. But let me just say something. You mentioned agency, and I'm not. We need to clarify these terms. Agency meaning being able to being able to deliberate between more than one choice or option, right? And the thing is, within the philosophical literature, whether it's there's two kind of schools of thought about how the universe might be, which is pretty much determinism or indeterminism, right? Most of the philosophers think that you need determinism for most philosophers think that determinism, like most philosophers are compatibilists, and they think you need determinism for reason giving agency, right? Because the alternative of indeterminism doesn't satisfy that, right? Because if you want to be able to deliberate, you need to have structured, sequenced, ordered kind of responses based on prior data, prior memories, etc. And that requires a kind of deterministic system. That's what they think, and that's why they're compatibilists. They think the
no,
alternative of
I mean in a way I would
they think the
yeah.
alternative of indeterminism, which is randomness, will be actually not a precondition for free will, because randomness doesn't create free will. Randomness is random. So you're going to have a scrambled personality, scrambled reasons. You're going to have completely indeterministic processes. And this is why a lot of philosophers think that with randomness, you don't get free will because your choices will be entirely random. In order for your choices to have any sensible meaning as part of a structured, ordered personality with reference to your memories, reference to structured information, you actually need a deterministic set of processes.
Um, yeah, I mean that dichotomy. So in a way, I am also compatibilist, right? Because compatibilism is a conditional claim that if determinism is true, then even then we have free will. So yeah, I mean I agree with Dennett that okay, if we agree with determinism, then we can have that sort of view of agency too. But I'm saying that okay, determinism is not true, and also the randomness, this dichotomy of randomness and order determinism is also a bit false dichotomy, right? Uh, uh, because the choices are not just pure chaos or pure order, where everything is like clockwork, Laplacian demon, where which is moving state by state from universal laws, or it has to be everything has to be random. I would say that there's a fundamental stochasticity, like fundamental sort of indeterminism uh, i- at the lowest layer, which allows for like higher level structures to evolve with
Yeah,
time.
yeah. No, I agree with
That
that. Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think when people say, is determinism true or indeterminism true, they're not saying whether the universe is entirely deterministic versus, they're not saying the universe is entirely indeterministic. They're saying, is the universe deterministic entirely, or is some parts of it indeterministic? Because if we live in a universe that some parts of it's indeterministic, then the universe is not deterministic entirely, and that's what they kind of say. So I understand your point, and you're correct that it would be a false dichotomy if expressed in the following way: either we live in an entirely deterministic universe or an indeterministic universe. Yeah, but they don't use the
Yeah.
verbiage, the language of indeterminism that way. What they mean by indeterminism is that there's some parts of the universe that are indeterministic. So that's all they kind of mean.
Yeah.
Because yeah, and you're right that I actually believe also that there might be parts of the universe, probably, possibly, I don't know what, but I'm open to it. That might be indeterministic, etc. But I also, it's still a hard case to make from indeterminism that you're going to have free will, because for the first reasons that I explained regarding you need structure, you need coordination, you need order. Like some people would say, if your brains were entirely
So
indeterministic, you're not going to get
I would
right.
I would make the like reverse argument that you need indeterminism for agency. So are you familiar with like free energy principle or Carl Friston, that literature? So uh,
Say that again. Can you say it
uh,
again?
free energy principle. Carl Friston is the person. So he has a model
Oh,
for like yeah, he has a model for agency, and I think it's like broadly pretty correct. I mean, I don't buy into like all the parts of it, but I think broadly what it is saying is that we are always in a epistemic like uh, behind some so we are action and perception are always in a loop, so that agent has some internal states and external states. I mean, it's a bit complicated to explain, but basically the point there is that uh, that i- that uh, as universe moves or evolves in time, that structures begin to form, and they have like a attractor space. So some structures are more stable. So we are assuming a initial state of the universe or Big Bang was like pure chaos sort of soup. Then few structures like atoms, etc. These structures that survive become more stable over time, and those structures then interact with each other, and yeah, that causes to like build like basic evolution of complexity narrative. So in
oh,
that
sure.
case, for yeah, so for
Oh,
that
sorry,
to
finish your point. Finish your point.
yeah, so for that to get off, so I mean, from that perspective, that all all our reasoning and everything is about like minimizing the free energy, and that would be like matching our models, whatever word model we have of the word, and applying it in action, and basically updating the word model as we go along in the world. So if we are starting from that like existential viewpoint, so even the theories of scientific theories, etc., would fall into that bucket. That and it's sort of like a Kantian picture too, that we that the phenomena or whatever we are studying is always structured by mind, but it's basically taking that free energy principle is taking that into the newest like neuroscience and mathematical tools that have been developed after Kant into account, and making it basically probabilistic instead of Kant. In Kant's time, he only had Newtonian mechanics to go, but yeah. So in that view, if so that in that way, agency sort of becomes like a fundamental viewpoint, because we are all agents in the social
Well,
world
can I
who are
can I say
tra-
what you're talking about isn't like a substantiated fact when it comes to brains, right? That's like a sketch. I don't think there's anything known right now amongst like a scientific consensus about the brain.
about
Yeah, it's very speculative, right? So whether or not indeterminism is something that occurs at a neural level, that's completely like, I think most people would say there isn't any such thing at all, right? I like when I spoke to majority of physicists, right? Quantum level sort of stuff, we're not talking about that there at that point, at that macro structure. We're talking about very, very small, tiny micro events. So whether or not the brain is subject to indeterminism at this moment leans towards the idea that it isn't, because the brain is too big. Basically, quantum level events don't apply that. There is an open question, maybe possibility that there
no,
might
no,
be, but that's not the case with brain. But
I'm a bit so, but how does so ultimately one, like, there's only one universe, right? So either it has to be quantum mechanical or deterministic. So I mean, I agree that at my macro level you can approximate with the deterministic laws a lot of things that are happening, and quantum phenomena like decoherence or whatever, like entanglement, etc., doesn't happen at the level of brain. I mean, I would agree with that, but still, I mean, in nature, quantum events are always happening, and if we are agreeing that those are indeterministic, they will become input to future deterministic chains, right? So those chains
yes,
would
that's
also
correct. That's what I'm
become
saying. So
indeterministic.
could not the so it wouldn't show that we are indeterministic, but it would show that there are other aspects of the universe that are indeterministic, but we are still deterministic, just like Newtonian laws, or just like the billiard balls on a pool table, right? That part will still be deterministic, and therefore all of our reasoning and processing and thinking and deliberating is still deterministic, because it doesn't apply on the level of brain, but it applies elsewhere, right?
No. So if if quantum mechanics is saying that that nature fundamentally is indeterministic, then that has to apply to macro level as well. Why would all those like effects cancel out at the upper level? I think that's just completely arbitrary, and we don't even know which level we should consider like a macro level and micro level. I mean, I don't take like Penrose theories or those sort of thing that consciousness is collapsing. On consciousness, I have a view that consciousness is like quietism sort of view, that it's a very confused concept, and at least how it is discussed in with what it is like and all that sort of thing. So I'm not making some like very strong claim, but that it has to be in it very in
Yeah, I
like
mean,
so, some.
we're talking about a very speculative and philosophical topic as well. It crosses over to philosophy, and
Yeah.
and since we don't know exactly what we're talking about, it's very difficult to grasp. But I don't see any issue. I'm not saying this is true, by the way, but I don't see any issue of this sort of macro kind of distinction when it comes to quantum versus the deterministic, or both of them colliding together. When there's some parts of it that it is deterministic and some parts of it is indeterministic. You can have parts of, let's say, a chain of events. Let's imagine the upper aspects of the chain are deterministic, the bottom aspects. So you can talk about the bottom aspects as micro, and you can talk about the upper aspects as macro. And the bottom aspects are ultimately indeterministic. So the cause behind A, so the cause behind, let's say you have like a deterministic chain, A, B, C, D, E of events. There is a part of this chain, let's say we start with A, which can lead to B, can lead to D, can lead to E. And what causes that? Nothing. It's random. True randomness. Complete true randomness. not pretend randomness, real randomness, and it can be
So
any of these.
first,
Yeah, just give me one
for
second. Just give me
yeah.
1 second. So we have true randomness at this level, right? Let's say it's the initial state or whatever you want to call it, absolute true randomness. And if we rewinded the universe back to A, it actually might give, since it's not deterministic, it won't go lead to B, it could lead to C, it could lead to D, it could lead to E. Now, in a deterministic universe, when you rewind it back to A, it will always lead to B each time. That's deterministic. B will always follow A. But in indeterminism, B can follow, D can follow, E can follow. So you can have a part of the chain that is indeterministic between A and B. Yeah, it could be A or C, it can A or D, A or E, any other alternative outcome. But after B, it could be a completely deterministic order, right? It could be B, C, D, E, F. And each time we rewind the universe, right, it will always lead to that same sort of order, right? Whatever that is, it will, whatever that thing is, it will always produce the same effect after that. That's completely logically possible. It sounds absurd, but it's logically possible. So what I mean is, after A, it could be any letter of the alphabet. But after that, it will be it will be C, it will be D, it will be E, it will be F, it will be G. Can you see what I'm saying? They will always produce the same sort of result. Now that's logically possible. I'm not saying that applies to the universe, but since it seems logically possible, that's one possible way in which you can have part indeterminism and part determinism. And I think a lot of people believe that, but we live in we live in a somewhat deterministic universe, right? Where we have the same sort of things happening over and over again. I mean, it's hard to demonstrate determinism is true, obviously, but I would say sometimes you can prove, you can infer that it is deterministic when you try to simulate the same conditions in the universe, and you have the same result. That is, if you apply the same pressure on a billiard ball each time, it creates the same result. Identical pressure produces near identical results. That gives us a good reason to think that because we can never replicate the universe, but these sort of micro events tell us if the universe did get replicated with near identical or identical conditions, it's a good inference to make that it'll produce identical results, right? So
No, but
yeah,
so I'll lose a line of thought. But so I mean, of course, if we create a completely identical universe, then it will be identical. So same things will happen. That is fine. But
yeah, but
what
let me just
and I agree with you that
let me just
your
put a
picture
caveat
of
there. Let me just
yeah.
put a caveat there. Only if we can never prove, we can't prove this right now, obviously, but only if there's an indeterministic part would not, you'll get different results. But my point is what you said, if there's a part of it that's indeterministic, then the entire thing will change, right? There's no reason to limit the indeterminism to one section when it will reverberate upwards through the entire chain. What I'm saying with that counterexample that I gave you, you can think of logically possible situations where you can have identical kind of results, whilst some parts of it being non-identical.
Yeah, I mean logically, I think you're that makes sense that some events are uh, that way. But I mean the issue is more tricky here, right? Because we are talking about like at the same instant, and I mean on some level like quantum effects are not visible at the level of brain, but if we go at the level of atom, then at level of atomic interaction, then those would be or because it's a scale thing, right? Like macro, micro, and it is happening synchronically. So at the same instant that some uh, with- at the same instant, like assuming we can do that, but then that's a different issue. But at the same instant, at a lower scale, we are saying it's indeterministic, but at a higher scale, for the same thing, we are saying so in a way that my body is composed of atoms, and or maybe we can go even like body is composed of quantum fields, and we are saying that it is indeterministic, but me as a person becomes deterministic. So that I think is a bit like doesn't make like sense to me. But your model of that, with chains, it
Yeah,
makes
with
more
my
sense.
model, that's because we don't. The reason I'm proposing my model is because we don't know the nature of this. This is completely speculative, and we can't rule this possibility out. And some people do think that. Some people do think that although quantum mechanical events are indeterminate at some level, at a higher level it just becomes deterministic. That only makes sense if
No,
my logical model makes sense. That only makes sense if people hold on to that. Because otherwise, what you're saying, the alternative is that if it's deterministic at the bottom, indeterministic at the bottom, then it's just an illusion that we think there's determinism at the top. Because if it's random at the bottom, then if we repeat the universe again, each time it will give always a series of random events. So if we go back to A, it might give C, and then it may give G. It may, it'll just be different. And then we go back, it'll be another order, and they'll be go back. There's no, it's indeterminism every way out, every way through, or something like that. And that's not what people think. They think quantum mechanics is still limited to particular areas or something like that. The other thing, let me just say,
no. I think that I mean, I'm familiar with that claim, and I think Sean Carroll makes that claim, uh, but I think he's talking about something a bit different, because at least he's careful to say that he's saying that quantum effects are not observed in the brain because it is too wet, or too much like stochasticity already is present there, so there cannot be like uh, things like I
yeah,
don't know, like
yeah.
entanglement.
Yeah, can I just
So
also say,
that is a valid scientific and empirical claim, but he's not saying that. So that makes what happens at brain deterministic, because that's a very much stronger claim, right? While saying that the more like spooky sort of things of quantum mechanics, like entanglement and superposition, all that cancels out, because it is, like too much heat, too much liquid, and wet and mushy. Yeah, so that's fine as a
yeah,
scientific claim, that is true, but I don't think they mean. And anyways, like Sean Carroll is like many words person, right? So he believes in a deterministic universe, because many words is sort of a deterministic
yeah.
like theory.
Well,
So
let me just say another thing, that if indeterminism is true at some level, it could still be the case that if it's hard to talk about it without talking about these letters that I kind of imagine in my head. But if it goes from A to B, for example, and that's completely indeterministic choice, there could still be some boundaries in that. So when something is completely random, but still there could be limits to it. So it could the move from A could lead to B, C, D, or E, but that's it, right? It could be those 3 or 4 options, and that's entirely random. But all of those, whatever those things are, A, B, or whichever it is, they produce the same effect afterwards. In other words, small, tiny particles may be random at some point, but whatever they produce leads to very similar or same effects. And as such, this is how you can have kind of a deterministic upwards macro understanding, right? And I think people, I think that would still be. I'm just adding another clarification here, where we shouldn't assume that from A to B, when we say something is random, that there's an infinite number of options that can come about, right? It's not. There could be limits to it.
true.
There could be,
No, but I already agree with that, because I would say that habits or repetitions, because even a living cell, or something that is maintaining its structure over time, is sort of in a deterministic, right? Like we are determined to breathe the oxygen, because we are built that way, that our body is a like set of habits. I mean,
so
people call them
yeah,
habits, dispositions, or so
yes.
that obviously that is true, and those dispositions, etc., are all and like for free will also, it doesn't have to be. Obviously, the choices are limited and based on your social, historical, like biological, natural. You are limited in all sorts of ways, but the I guess the point is just about that. If there's sort of that agency is making like collapsing the potential to one specific choice, because uh, at any particular time there are multitude of potential options, and you uh, and and even an atom is making that sort of uh, yeah collapsing the potentiality to actuality. So but that would be again metaphysical discussion. So
Right. Let me just
yeah.
quickly add something here as well, because let's just assume some parts of the universe is indeterministic. I'm still not sure how you can get free agency, free will, right? So if there's either the brain or before the brain or somewhere else in the universe, some part of it is random, right? True randomness. I'm not sure
So
how you. Yeah,
think
let me just finish the point.
synchronically, not
Yeah. Sorry. Go on.
no. I was saying instead of like causes think synchronically, like at current point of time agency. So I'm thinking of like in a block universe, increasing block universe sort of way. That future is not determined. So basically, ultimately, the difference here is you are saying that future is also fixed, past is also fixed, and present is also fixed, and it's sort
Yeah.
of a complete block
No,
universe view, right?
kind of. No, I think I think we're moving away from the point that I'm making. Suppose the future is open and it's not fixed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it is. You're going to have. You're going to make. If you repeat the universe, it'll be completely different choices you will make, and maybe because there's
So repeat claim. I mean, I don't know. That's a very. I mean, I read upon it, but I find that thing weird, because what does repeating means? Even like it's like, is it like a picture you are repeating backwards? And if it's not physically possible, that is this thought experiment can even give us any like actual deciding vote here, because yeah, people can think of repeating in a different ways, right? And we never actually can uh, repeat like a quantum system due to some like no cloning theorems, etc.
yeah,
So yeah, why go there?
sure. But what I'm saying is, I'm trying to get behind how you can get free will or agency or different choices, right? That is been that makes you the agent of your actions, right? That makes you the agent of your action through your own deliberation, through alternative possibilities that you kind of adjudicate in your brain, and then you give reasons to choose an apple versus a let's say a banana, right? Now, if things are random, we don't need to. We don't need to necessarily think about it through a thought experiment of repeating the universe if that's uncomfortable. Let's throw that away if it makes things complicated. Think about it this way. Suppose the reason why I picked the banana instead of the apple is due to a deterministic reason. That is, there's some sort of neural firings in my brain, and there's chemical reactions, and that causes me to pick the one fruit versus the other fruit, right? And now suppose that's like a deterministic sketch. That's like, because of something happened in my brain, A, it led to B. Because of A, it led to B. It's deterministic. That's what we mean. It's very hard to not think about that without thinking.
But
Yeah.
but,
One minute.
so,
I've not finished the point. So
sure.
the reason that you're picking the banana or the apple, whatever it is, let's go with the banana. The reason that you're picking the banana is because of some deterministic events in your brain. But yeah, now imagine indeterminism, whether it's applied to the brain or elsewhere, right? How does that give you free will? Because through randomness, now the reason that you're picking the banana is because of some randomness that preceded you. Randomness now led to the banana coming to picking the banana. In each of these situations, you're still subject to some antecedent predecessor event that you were not controlling. You were not controlling it. You were being controlled by it. Whether it's a random roll of the dice in indeterminism, that you roll a dice. It could be any number. So the dice rolls, whatever the number is, you're going to pick the particular fruit. If it's 1, you're going to pick a banana. If it's 2, you're going to pick an apple. It's just random. Or it's due to deterministic reasons where there is no free choice. It's not random. It's deterministic. And in that case, it's also caused by predecessor events that you've not controlled. In each case, you're still governed by antecedent events that you are the product of and you're caused by. We still don't see this free agency. In order to have free agency, you have to be the author of your will. But in these cases, in both scenarios, determinism or indeterminism, you're not the author of your own will. Your will is hostage to predecessor events. Can you see what I'm saying? This is why I don't think the indeterminism
I don't.
gets, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that you need to start a new causal chain. I mean, the whole concept of causal chain only makes sense in sort of a determinist system, right? But yeah, I know this objection. So it's like you can will what you want, but you cannot will your wills, right? Something like that. That either it is random or either it is determined. But I think for like free will, it just has to be that you are acting for your own reasons, and yeah, your reasons have antecedent conditions, and that is fine.
Yeah.
I don't.
Can you see?
So, so I'm not a libertarian free will that it needs to start a new causal chain.
Yeah, well, I mean, if
I'm
that's
saying,
the case, all right, so that's great, brilliant, that's wonderful, because that means you're not thinking. Yeah, so libertarians think that you are the author of your actions. But
no, but I would say I am the author of my actions, but I am not starting a new causal chain. The reasons are mine because it's the reasons are like
but
myself.
where are those reasons coming from? When you say the reasons are yours,
Yeah, from my upbringing, from my historical culture, etc., language, and how all these things interact.
Yeah, so the reason that you have for making a choice is coming from not something that you're not authoring the reason. You can't author the reason. And let's say you have a reason to author a reason. Who authored that reason? You're always stuck.
Yeah, I mean, authoring is a so yeah. I mean, I can go either way. I was thinking authoring in the sense that I have access to or it was produced in my brain if thinking in those terms.
Exactly. So it's beyond you. You are product. My point is everything about you, your constellation of feelings, your desires, your attitudes, your intelligence, are things that is an amalgamation of all these other things that you didn't choose or you didn't control, whether it came through deterministic events or indeterministic chaos or whatever it is. In each case, you still don't have free will, right? Because you're not the author of your thoughts. Exactly, because they just exist. They just exist, and you're the product of it. You just call yourself this amalgamation of events, which are just beyond you. And as such, this is why it becomes complicated. This is why a lot of compatibilists they say what they say in order to make free will make sense is that you are your desires as long as nobody's forcing you, right? There's no gun to your head. As long as your brain is processing these things, whether it's deterministic or indeterministic, as long as you have a reason, then that is just free will. But guess what? That means if the compatibilists are correct here, that it's completely compatible with either of these choices, determinism or indeterminism. In fact, most compatibilists would say they can't see that arising on indeterminism. They think determinism is more compatible with this sort of free will, right? Because the libertarian free will, which compatibilists reject out of hand, they think is just not feasible or possible, right? Because it requires self-causation, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think libertarian is already buying into a sort of deterministic model, right? And he's making his model on a rejection of that. So that's already a mistake. Most
libertarians, some libertarians think, for example, that libertarian free will is a choice that has no predecessor cause. It's just a choice that just comes out of nowhere. They try to escape the problems of determinism that way.
So
Others think
yeah,
that they can. Others think that there is self-causation, right? You can, but each one, both of those possibilities are problems. Self-causation sounds self-contradictory, logically impossible, perhaps. And the first one, which is that a cause comes from nothing, is maybe again logically impossible, right? And even if it did come from nothing, it still doesn't give you the thing, the sense of agency that you think. If your desires are emerging out of nothing, you're still not in control of it. They just emerge, right? They just emerge. So if your desires are emerging out of nothing, one, it's logically impossible. Two, they just emerge. So you're not in control of it. And if you go with a self-causation model where your desires form your desires, that's like a circular loop, right? And that also it sounds like contradictory. Even if you try to say that you shape your desires, right? Who shaped your initial desire? It's just there. Something's going to be there that you didn't shape, because this loop will just exist. This loop will exist that you didn't create, that you are a product of. You are the loop. So in each case, you're not getting that freedom that what you're trying to think about.
Yeah, I think the same dichotomy is appearing again here, right? So so it's not like you have to either be the source of it, or it has to have like fully determinate antecedents, right? So I agree there are antecedents like your parents and where you are born, your culture, your language, all those are antecedents and limits.
I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about even proximate causes. So I'm not talking about things that necessarily that far back. I'm just talking about a neuron firing in your brain. Yeah.
So even with
if that's deterministic, if that's deterministic, you didn't cause it. If that's indeterministic, you didn't cause it. Even if you're a soul, forget the brain. Soul. What is the soul? And did you cause the desires of your soul? Did you create your desires of your soul? Or was your soul just there with desires and feelings and a personality? You see that?
Yeah, but it's still, I think, thinking in a determinist paradigm, right? Because I would say that all these are influences, but the choice is still in a way real. So it is, and there is, you cannot like exhaustively list down all all those antecedents, right? And I mean, even like from the first person point of view, we are not aware of, like, while reasoning, we are not aware of all the desires or antecedents in a way. So our reasoning is like pretty limited in that sense. If we had more information, we could have made better reasoned choice. And if suppose we had like complete information, which in some sense might not even be possible, because like our brain cannot handle all that. So of course I agree that whatever choice we are making is has antecedents.
Yeah, so this is not looking at it entirely through a deterministic paradigm. I'm saying it even in an indeterministic paradigm. If your neurons indeterministically produce a sort of set of behaviors or reasons or preferences or whatever, it's a combination of neurons doing this, and there's some parts of it that are indeterministic. It still is a result of events outside of your control. They're just indeterministic events, and therefore you are subject to it. I know you're saying that sounds like determinism, but it's what I'm saying is, so your issue here is that any sort of chain sounds like determinism, and I'm saying no. I'm saying that an indeterministic chain of events is indeterministic. It leads to different things. It's random, right? But because you're part of this chain, your desires are still subject to predecessor events. Now, if you're saying that this chain model doesn't work, you need to make you have to articulate and sketch for me how indeterminism makes sense. Like, what are we thinking about? What am I trying to visualize it? When I have a choice to choose a banana over an apple, an indeterministic event happens in my brain. How can I not think of a chain? How can I not think of predecessor?
Yeah. So there are causal influences. So I would say thinking in deterministic paradigm is thinking that those influences like fix your choice. I would say those are influences, but the choice that is being made is still still happening, like still deliberation is happening. I'm not trying to use process philosophy language terms like prehension
I'm
or
not. Yeah, it's not clear to me what you're saying. So how though? What do you mean? Like, so let's think about it.
so
Let's you pick an apple or before you pick an apple instead of a banana, right? So you're saying the indeterminism is just an influence. Is that what you're saying?
so no so I'm saying that determinism is a stronger claim. It is saying that whatever is going to happen is already determined. If you have like exhaustively the set of all things, all the causes, uh, then your choice is fixed. But what I'm saying is, if like universe is actually indeterministic, then that doesn't make sense, right? Of course,
Yeah, no,
it makes sense.
I
There
know.
are
That's what.
anticip-
Forget it.
Yeah.
Forget determinism. I'm thinking about it in an indeterministic context. So you're
No,
picking
but from
you're picking a banana over an apple, and there's an indeterministic event that makes it sure that your choice isn't fixed, right?
no. So that choice itself is that event. So every event that is happening is
Okay.
has influence, but uh, it is like everything. So from like metaphysics, I'm not trying to do too much metaphysics, but what I'm saying is that we cannot, if we do like make chain of events A B C D E this sort of way, then we are saying that like C is completely determining D. That if C happens, then D will happen. But I'm saying that that notion of causation uh, is mistaken, because
Yes.
yeah,
No, but I'm granting you that. I'm granting you that if C happens, D will not. It's not definitively the case that D will happen. It's random. It'll lead to any other result. The point is,
it's not random. It's not random. It is like probabilistic, but it is still
okay,
like be happened is still important in the history. So it's not like completely disconnected. Something new is happening, but
okay.
there is like real creativity that is happening. That from the space of possibilities, the because the mind
Right. So at
or
what
the
point?
mental pole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my point. All right. Let's say you have the will. You have the will to choose a banana. Are you saying then
Mhm.
that there is some point in that will itself is probabilistic, and therefore it's not deterministic. It's a form of indeterminism. My point is, where did that
So
will come from? Where did that point is the will you're still not control of the will. It just happens, right? You pick the banana. You reason, you want the banana, but that want, where does it come from? Even if it's random, even if it's probabilistic, it just happens. You didn't pick it. You are the will. I get it. You are the will. You're the will. That is part of you. You wanted the banana, but it just arose that little intention for the banana, according to you, on a indeterministic universe, or indeterministic brain state, whatever you want to call it, just arised. You know, that's it. It's not fixed. So my point is, whether it's fixed or not fixed, you have the same kind of problem where it just arises. Can you see what I'm saying? You're
no,
not a free agent, because that's why the libertarian sketch of free will is so attractive. Because when they say a free agent, is that you actually have control over all of your wills and desires. But the problem with libertarianism is it just doesn't make sense when you think about it. So in each case, these are just wills that are just arising, whether it's deterministic or not, deterministic or indeterministic.
Right. I think so. It how should I? So indeterminism is mm, indeterministic events. I think there's some confusion going on in language here. So what I'm saying is that indeterminism is not the source of control. The source of control is the agent or the organism that has the whole evolutionary history of like 4 billion years, right? So how you are able to make like very high level executive decision of if should I marry this person, or
Mm.
on like very complex reasoning, right? Like building science, etc. So all that, for all that to happen, or I mean, for one of the conditions for that to be possible is that yeah that that agency, that indeterminism is allowing a sort of causal slack, that it allows uh, like reality to collapse, maybe like a quantum metaphor, that it indeterminism just allows that collapse can happen in different ways. And yeah, so and that uh, just that indeterminism initially allowed organisms to evolve in this way, because in a way evolution also required random variation and selection, right? So that I'm sort of generalizing evolution. Yeah, I think this would be one better way. So it is like generalizing evolutionary principles to the whole scale of nature, like making it scale free, that even in physics there's a fundamental randomness that like happens in gene selection. So random variation, what is it, random variation, selection, and inheritance, right? Yeah, so secondness is like selection, that some collapse happened. Then third is that gets inherited. So those habits keeps on acquiring, like keeps on collecting, and makes things starts getting more and more complex. But as complexity increases, so does the degrees of freedom increase, that our mind. So if you compare us to just animals, right, we are able to like in the realm of possibilities, we are able to consider multiple different options, and that all happened because there is a fundamental like stochastic or random nature. So that allows for that causal slack, but that is not the source of our decision. We are the source of our decision, but we are shaped by evolution, and this like generic evolution to be such an organism. So I think that is where the confusion is coming in. I'm not saying that that you choose, and also this is very like autonomy, making autonomy very like primary value, right? You have to choose everything, only then it is yours. It can also be sort of like a spectrum, right? That spectrum of agency. You are. It's not like one or zero. That either you own everything that you have, only then it will be free will, because that would like make like nothing will have free will, right? But why set such a high standard? It has to include influences or whatever history, and like we are biological creatures, we cannot fly, so all those limitations are there, but which were like shaped by environment, etc. And whatever environment we are in, our choices are limited. But still, uh, even in our current particular environment, we are able to consider different possibilities, and those are like real virtual, uh, maybe virtual possibilities in a way. And only one, and when we act, we are only able to act on one of them, because we cannot act in multiple ways, right? So yeah, broadly that is the model, that indeterminism just disallows the inference that there is some sort of Laplacian demon possible, uh, uh, which will rule out this like fundamental randomness or stochasticity, which would, and if we disallow that, then that evolution itself will not happen, uh, because in a deterministic universe, right? For biology, we say that okay, there is some randomness, but that randomness is on a macro scale due to Brownian motion, etc. That is all random, uh, and genes just do randomly. But if at least, and this I'm like putting it in my terms, but this is like Whitehead's view that Whitehead or maybe Peirce, that they generalize evolutionary principles to the level of universe itself. So it is it is more about uh, thinking in an organist terms instead of mechanism, that like the universe is a as a whole is interrelated. There are all sorts of internal relations and external relations, etc. So everything is sort of in relation with stuff, and there are like more sparse and strong relations, etc. And that yeah that is getting and that actual occasion that is happening uh, is has is making that decision in a way, that decision of collapsing which possibility uh, from the list of possibilities. And this l- possibilities are sort of, you can consider in a Platonist terms, like eternal objects, right? So any intentionality we object that we think about is sort of this I mean, roughly, sort of Platonic object, and there are like infinite of those, because possibilities are
Right.
infinite, and
Well,
since if our actions are limited, we can
let me
collapse
just
only
yeah,
one of them.
reflective journey. Reflect. Let me just stop you there because you've been talking for a while there. So I think there's the difficulties at fully comprehending exactly what you mean there. Some parts of it I understood. Some parts of it I think were a little bit difficult to understand. I think what you may want to do is possibly try to write this down in a more clear fashion. Simply because
No, I mean, I'll just refer
hold
you,
on.
right? Just
Reflective journey, hold on. Yeah, because there's a lot of complicated kind of jargon there and points that you're trying to make, and I think you do need to simplify it rather than talking at extensive prose. I mean, I'm guilty of that as well to some extent, but I try to at least break things down into like easy to understand analogies, right? Even if I talk at length. But I think there's a lot of maneuvering there, to lots of points, and each one is very, very heavy. And at this moment, I don't
true.
think any of it's well kind of substantiated. Like the points that you're making about multiple real possibilities and stuff, they're contentious. So it's difficult to kind of
No,
understand. Yeah.
I agree.
So
I agree. I
you
agree.
would want.
They're contentious, and
Yeah.
I'm also bad at explaining. And
No, it's okay. I
yeah,
mean, I tried to listen to you for a while to kind of figure it out. I think I understood what you meant in certain parts. In other parts, I didn't understand it fully. So it's probably not fair to comment on it. But I think little parts that are understood, which is that everything. It's not the case that everything has to be caused by you or etc. I'm not saying everything has to be caused. I'm talking about at least when it comes to free agency, that for freedom to apply, the autonomy to apply, you should be the author of your will, in control. So I'm not talking about everything has to be. There's plenty of things like Daniel Dennett talks about, beyond your control. There's plenty of events around you that are beyond your control. The sun is beyond your control, the rain, the weather, but the reasons, the dispositions, the desires, that at least is a candidate that has to be free, right? And in your control, that you freely come to realizing. And apart from the compatibilist definition of free will, it's hard to see how it's free. Whether it's determinism or indeterminism, I can't see how that is. Even if you're like a rational mammal that's evolved through evolution to be a deliberator. That's what Daniel Dennett talks about. That you evolve to be a deliberator. You take in reasons through your inputs from your environment and you make choices. But even in that sort of scenario, you are still subject to forces, physics, whether that's indeterministic physics or whether it's deterministic physics, that is just you are a product of. And this is very relevant because it becomes very important in the context of a responsibility, right? If what we're talking about is what we're talking about is the case and free will doesn't exist, either on determinism or indeterminism, then when a person commits a crime, right, that person's biology, his anatomy, his physiology, his neurology, his desires, his feelings, in both cases, determinism and indeterminism, was somewhat just events, right? And events that he was a product of. His desires was just a product, right? And this is important because then the question is, was he genuinely responsible for the act? Or were these just events that he had no control over? And if these were events that he didn't have control over, including what he is, which is a bundle of emotions, bundle of feelings that just did something, right? Then it's hard to hold somebody morally responsible. But anyway, what I'll do.
I mean, so for moral responsibility, just one point.
Yeah.
So I mean,
before you proceed, I do need to cut it off now. Okay, I just wanted to respond to your point. What I'd say to you is write down your thoughts on this in more clear fashion. Maybe send it through email, right? And then we can maybe take off from there in a second discussion. Okay.
Yeah. Just one thing. Are you familiar with Kevin Mitchell? He has a book, Free Agents. Kevin Mitchell. I'll just paste it in the chat as well. Because free will. I'll just Google it and paste it. I mean, if you are interested, because he wrote a whole book already, and a lot of like better people than me have.
So does he represent? Are you saying he represents your views a bit?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll read that. That's good. Yeah.
I mean, not like completely like metaphysics, etc. He doesn't go in. He's a like a scientist as well. So I think you will like his book. So
sure. I'll try and give a read of that, or maybe like a summary or something. But I'll probably have to sit down and read it at some point, and then maybe in a subsequent discussion we can talk about it. Okay.
Sure. I'll just paste it in the chat.
Sorry.
Yeah, I pasted in the chat. It's Free Agents: How Evolution Gave Us Free Will. Kevin J. Mitchell. Yeah, I pasted it in the chat as well.
Okay.
So his view is pretty similar to mine. And and ethics we can probably discuss, like moral responsibility. Yeah, that gets into an ethics discussion, like are you a virtue ethicist, which theory of morality you subscribe to, and how assigning blame and responsibility. That's a longer topic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and it was a good discussion. Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
So it's also
I do need to wind down the stream. That's fine. I've got your input there. Thanks for people who's been watching. Philo had to go early. I'm pretty sure this was a deep philosophical discussion, so some people might be interested in watching it. A lot of people probably lose interest. But thanks, Reflective Journey, for your input, and thanks for coming on and having a cordial discussion. We appreciate it, and we will invite you again in a subsequent stream. Hopefully, I'll read this book, and then we can have a more constructive discussion on it after I get a handle on your views. Okay.
Sure.
Anyway,
thanks.
So,
good. It was good for me too. Yeah.
Okay, you're welcome. Anyway, gonna turn off the stream now. So thanks for watching, and have a good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.